Hi and welcome to the We Need a Voice podcast. And tell me, future boy, who's President of the United States in 1985?
Ronald Reagan?
Yes, good guess. David's been doing his Back to the Future homework, but no, you knew that. Who's Vice President? Jerry Lewis?
Nah, it's George Bush, mate.
Oh, horrific. And in this episode, we're going to be talking Jordan Peele's long awaited Nope, with spoilers, because it's pretty much nigh on impossible to talk about the film without them. And I'm going to be regaling you with tales of my youth, David, as I discuss Netflix's new documentary, Woodstock 99, Trainwrecked, about the, well, absolute shit show that was Woodstock 99. How old were you in 1999, David?
7. I'm going to say 7 or 8. 7 or 8.
Right.
Wait, it depends on when it happened in 99. When was it?
I think it was like June or July.
Okay, I was born in July, so that doesn't really help me. If it was June, I would have been 7.
Right. So clearly you wouldn't have been going. That's what I'm saying.
But no, I wouldn't have been there. But I genuinely don't know anything that happened at Woodstock 99. I literally know nothing about this, so I'm going to be quite interested to hear what you're going to tell me.
David,
give me a history lesson right here on the podcast, Neil. Go.
Okay, well, you know I like my music, you know I like my festivals, so
yes.
Let me take you down a memory lane trip, David. Netflix's Woodstock 99 is a 3-part documentary about the ill-fated festival in Rome, New York. Now, initially I thought I'd seen this documentary because there was a HBO documentary in 2021 called Woodstock 99, Peace, Love and Rage, which I could have swore I saw on BBC 2 or Channel 4, and I actually thought it was the same thing, so when it popped up I just ignored it because I thought I'd seen it. And then when I realised I hadn't, well, it was essential viewing. Now, I was 21 in 1999 and totally into many of the bands that played Woodstock. I've even got the double CD of the gig that came out afterwards, and I was totally into the bands like Offspring, Chili Peppers, Limp Bizkit, Rage Against the Machine, Bush and Korn, etc. And this documentary tells a story of the utter chaos and rioting that turned the festival that was known for peace and love into an inferno of rage, hate and violence. Now, Woodstock in 1969 was known as the Festival of Peace and Love and had quite the mellow vibe and was massive as part of the counterculture movement in the States. Now, in 1994, OG organiser Michael Lang organised Woodstock 1994 to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the festival. This took place on a farm 100 miles from New York, and it ran for 2 days. And it's funny how many of the problems and issues that took place in the 94 festival were even worse in the 99 one. And the documentary kind of skips by what happened in the 94 one, and it was kind of glossed over for me, because it's like, well, stuff you're mentioning that was an issue, like the people getting in for free and bigger crowds than you were expecting, and just, you know, general infrastructure surrounding the festival not being able to support it. You had these issues in 94, and yet you didn't address any of it when you tried to do it again in 99. And the big thing that just fucked off a lot of people was the corporate sponsorship. You had vendors massively overcharging the kids at the festival, which went absolutely against the spirit of the original festival. Give you an example, right? You know, if you go to a festival now or a concert now, how much do you think it costs you for a bottle of water?
A bottle of water at a festival?
Yeah.
Probably quite expensive, like £6.
I think I was going to say around £4, £5 these days.
Yeah.
But
it's probably quite expensive because they rip you off, don't they?
Yeah, they rip you off. So you think over, almost over 21 years ago in 1999, they were charging over $10 for a bottle of water.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah.
No wonder these kids went absolutely apeshit there.
What even is that? I'm going to find out what $10 is in 1999.
Okay, well, you do that and I'll
adjusted
continue.
for inflation. $17.78 today.
Fuck. Ridiculous.
Yeah, that's insane for a fucking bottle of water. Yeah.
And I remember reading that the vendors, right, their license to like set a stall up, I think it was about $500 for the 3 days. Well, they'd make that back in an hour, the prices they were charging.
Yeah. I mean, like the £5, £6 or whatever we said's fucking expensive for water or a drink at a like anywhere. Like at a gig or a festival, yeah, but $17 fucking dollars, you'd just dehydrate, wouldn't you?
Yeah, so you think over 20 years ago they were charging that extortionate amount there. On the 1994 festival, they sold 164,000 tickets, and they had a very flimsy fence that was pretty much took down by hordes of fans, and they estimated there was 350,000 people on site. And because of this, they also had bad weather. It pissed it down non-stop in the 94 one, and everyone was just covered in mud. Nine Inch Nails did a brilliant performance where they came out on stage just covered head to toe in mud, and I remember them being one of the highlights from there back in the day. But because of this, the organisers made no money on the event, which is why in '99 they chose a former army base in Rome, New York, which already had a 12-foot wooden and steel fence around it, and it was also in the middle of nowhere, with the idea that it would stop people breaking in for free. But the other problem they had was, this time round, there was a massive extreme heat. Yes, that's right, Chilla, extreme heat.
He's not happy about it. It's extreme heat at the moment for him, and he's sweating his balls off, bless him.
Well, and the other thing was, there was no shelter and very few water stations that were few and far between. I actually went to a big festival up in London about a month ago. I saw Pearl Jam and the Pixies there for an all-dayer. And there was water stations everywhere, and it was free. And that was probably on one of the hottest days of the year we had then. But at Woodstock, again, and they do this at all festivals now, you're not allowed to bring in any outside food or drink. So that meant these kids had to pay the massively inflated prices inside. So no lessons were learned from the '94 version of the festival, and the overt consumerism, which was so at odds with the spirit of the original festival, is a big reason for its failure. Also, you have to look at the bands that were booked. Musically, they was completely different from the OG Woodstock. In '99, some of the biggest bands on the planet at the time were nu metal, alt rock and punk. So instead of singing about peace, love and understanding, you had bands like Limp Bizkit who were literally inciting the crowd to break stuff. The documentary explains that the promoters had no idea how to put a bill together, and that one young staff member raised questions about the bill and was just told to shut up. Even at a regular rock festival, you need a balance of bands on the bill. Woodstock didn't have this. And showing a terrible sign of the times, there was only 2 female artists on the whole bill. 2 of the biggest female artists in the world at that time, that was Sheryl Crow and Jewel, who were both pelted with muds, bottles and misogynistic chants throughout their sets. Indeed, in the documentary, there is so much disturbing footage of women being abused as they crowd surfed, or being directly cornered by large groups of men telling them to expose themselves. And after the festival concluded, there was an avalanche of reports of rape at the festival, which shocked America at the time and is even more shocking by today's standards when you see it in this documentary. So, why else was it a disaster? Well, as we've mentioned, the overt capitalism of the organisers, who clearly put profit above crowd welfare and safety, the terrible location with no shelter for the largely college kid crowd, and no diversity on the bill. And by that I mean even at a rock festival, you still had different types of rock bands, different genres of rock bands. You needed rest between the big bands. You needed a band that was a bit more of a chill-out band for a few hours to bring the crowd down again and give them a rest. And the promoters here just didn't get that. They just booked heavy, full-on bands back-to-back. And so many similar style of bands back-to-back just kept amping the crowd up more and more. There was a lack of competentness by security, where again, corners were cut with the events budget. We have interviews in a documentary from kids who just wanted to go to the festival who had said, tell you what, we'll pay you $500, here's a shirt, you're security now. Absolutely, because of the whole Woodstock idea of, oh, we're anti-government and anti-police and all that kind of stuff, they just hired a bunch of kids with no experience to be security. That meant you didn't have any trained security people there. You had the mob mentality of the crowd, because if you look at it, most of the crowd appear to be drunken, young, angry white males who are intent on just getting ridiculously fucked up and destroying anything in sight. Now, obviously, this behaviour is unacceptable, but I don't think, without the issues that I've already mentioned, it becomes the shit show that it becomes. People were pissed off and angry about the way they were being price gouged and treated on site, and the attitude that if the organisers don't give a fuck about us, we're not going to give a fuck about them or their festival. And the place erupts on the last night, with most of the site being burnt down and state troopers eventually being brought in to quell the unrest. Now, the promoters generally seem like out-of-touch scumbags who were still doing daily press conferences and trying to keep the narrative that, oh no, it's just some minor disturbances here, everything's cool, everything's fine, everyone's enjoying themselves, hey, what a great success we are. And those comments would immediately be undercut in the documentary by crew that worked the event, saying, these guys haven't got a fucking clue what they're doing. Next, they tried to blame the bands for riling up the crowds. As we see during Limp Bizkit's set, the crowd start pulling down parts of a sound tower and then crowd surfing on wooden planks. Well, of course, what's the singer of the band going to do? Fred Durst copies the kids and does the exact same thing. Because he's done it, everyone then is trying to rip bits of wood down and crowd surf on actual wood in a crowd full of people. Now, my personal connection to this is at the time in 1999, I'd been going to rock festivals for about the past 4 or 5 years. My first festival ever when I was, I think, 16, 17, was Donington Monsters of Rock in 95. Got the coach up from Folkestone to Donington, saw Metallica, White Zombie, Slayer, Corrosion of Conformity, Skid Row, Therapy. It was a Machine Head. It was just an absolutely brilliant day. And it cost 40 quid back then. £40 for the all-day festival ticket and the coach up there and back. Now, after the chaos of Woodstock in 99, a month after that, many of the same bands, in particular Offspring and the Chili Peppers, were going to be playing the Reading Festival, where they'd be playing back-to-back on my 21st birthday, which was the last night of the festival. Now, at Woodstock, the mayor of the town asked them, during the Chili Peppers, to calm things down, because a couple of fires had been set on the grounds during their set. And he says, look, guys, there's a fire. We need to stop your set. We need to put the fire out. When you come back out, can you play like Under the Bridge and just calm it down a bit? What did the Chili Peppers do? They walked out and done a cover of Jimi Hendrix' Fire, which then the crowd took to, hey, let's just burn the whole fucking place down. So when I was at Reading a month later, and again, information like, you can go online and Twitter and see shit immediately these days. Even back in 99, information wasn't as widespread back then, so we didn't really know. Between us, we kind of heard, I know everyone went crazy at Woodstock, man. People were burning shit down. And so we were all thinking, well, do you know what? What's going to happen at Reading? Are people going to go apeshit and burn the place down if the Chili Peppers play Fire? Well, they didn't actually play Fire, although they did play Iggy and the Stooges' Search and Destroy. Now, it's funny to me, because at the last night in Reading, it always seemed to be the crazy night where no one would sleep and everyone would just keep staying up drinking all night, and you could wander from campsite to campsite just witnessing the craziest shit. I remember walking past a fire and there's just a whole bunch of naked people there with someone playing acoustic guitar, and they were singing Aha's Take On Me. There was another guy wandering around with a big stick full of underpants and asking people for underpants. There was a large group of people just stoned out of all stoned out of their minds, yelling bong, bong, bong as their friends were doing a bong contest. I think the difference is, it was good-natured here. There wasn't that, when you look at the Woodstock documentary, you can just see that anger, that annoyance. Reading, I think, because it's been going on so many years in the same location, the organisers know what they're doing with the location. Food and drink wasn't as stupidly as expensive as it was at Woodstock, and you had a much more diverse bill. And I actually looked back at the bill for the day when I was researching this, and you had a lot more commercial indie and Britpop music, as well as the alt-rock bands and the much more heavier metal bands that we usually say for the last day. And also, there was more than 2 female artists on the bill. You had a punk band, The Donners, you had indie band Sleater Kenny, singer-songwriter Beth Orton, who literally moved a friend to tears with her set. I do remember that, because we took the mickey out of him all day for crying during Beth Orton. And also, one of the, I think the second to last headliners on the second night was Catatonia. Do you remember Catatonia, David? Welsh band?
Yeah, I have no idea what that is.
They had a song called Mulder and Scully about the X-Files.
I'm not big into my music now, I'm not going to lie to you. I was interested in the documentary, but now I think you've gone off on something else.
Well, I mean, that's because you was milking your dog in between.
But gross.
What I was going to say was...
Red ramen.
But watching this, it honestly made me wonder what 21-year-old me would have done if I was in the same position as most of these kids. I was thinking, would I have gone on a destruction-filled rampage? And you like to think no, but also in your early 20s, that's kind of when you're getting more into your politics and your anti-government and anti-consumerism things, and you're like, yeah, fuck the system. You kind of like that in your early 20s once you get to uni and learn about, more about the outside world. And, when the whole event erupts into this mob mentality, I do wonder what it would have been like there. I was desperately thinking. I was like, I probably might have knocked down a couple of wooden boards or something, but I couldn't have seen you
You'd have just been there, whilst everyone else is setting fire to the stage or whatever. You'd have been like,
yeah, I'll just break down a bit of a fence.
I'm going to break this glass.
No, I wouldn't do glass. That's dangerous. I just do break a bit of wood. I mean, splinters is the worst you can hope for there. Okay. But like I say, I think thankfully none of that really happened at Reading, because it's just a very well-run festival that's been doing it for years. Also, there wasn't just loads of rapey frat bros there. And probably the worst fire-related incidences we had on the last night that year when the Chili Peppers played was a few people just being like, I cannot be bothered to take my tent back, I'm going to burn it. And a few chemical toilets burnt down. Have you ever been to a festival before?
Not a overnight. Well, I've been to like couple of
one
day
day one.
things. Yeah, but not overnight stuff.
So if you've been to like a full 3-day festival, you're technically it's 5 days, right? You'll travel up usually on the day before, so you can get a good camping spot as soon as the gates open on the first day of the festival. You have 3 days of chaos and next to no sleep, and then you don't smell very good on the Monday morning, man. I'm just saying, you don't smell good at all. And I would say that on a Monday morning, the worst smell I've ever smelled in my life, other than us, was the smell of chemical toilets that had been used for 4 nights in a row and burnt down. That is the worst smell in the history of the universe. So yeah, man, this is a fascinating documentary, and I think you should watch it just because you'll be like, do you know what? It's weird because I've been looking at the comments online on Twitter, and a lot of people it's kind of almost made them go, well, I don't want to go to a festival now. But festivals aren't like that now, and I think in the UK we're a bit more reserved because of our sort of natural more reservedness. You know, I think when you're in your early 20s and you're into that kind of music, you want to like tear your shirt off, run into a mosh pit, jump around and like shove people. But
I can't fucking stand mosh pits at gigs. I'm one of those really fucking boring blokes that just stands at the back and likes to listen to the music. Especially now. When I was younger, I used to like getting into mosh pits.
But that's exactly
and when
what I
they
said.
do the wall one, when they tell people to separate into a wall and then bound into each other.
The circle pit.
Off. No, that's a mosh. But then there's this one there. They separate you into two sets of people basically, and then clash you together. Oh god, I fucking hated that one. You're just standing there, fucking elbowing and punching people, telling them to get away from you. Like get the fuck, you know.
You just hit the nail on the head there. You just exactly said what I said. It's a youth thing when you're younger and you have that pent up aggression and you know the testosterone's going through the roof. That's exactly what you want to do. You want to run into a pit and like just do that primal scream and get everything out. And you know, as I get older, it's pretty much just for me. It's just standing there and yelling out the words now to my favourite bands and that. And just I do stand further back now. I do stand there and I want to see the show. I don't get absolutely shit-faced drunk like a lot of people did, and I did a little bit. I mean, my 21st at Reading, I remember someone pouring half a bottle of vodka down my throat by about midday. So I don't remember anything until Offspring and the Chili Peppers. And most of the Chili Peppers, I just remember thinking, I just need to sit down. My legs don't work anymore. But I think festivals are a lot more diverse these days, and it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. For me, you look at like the modern, like there's perfect examples just happened, right? Rage Against the Machine have just confirmed they've pulled out of headlining Reading in the UK this year. And guess who their replacements are?
Harry Styles? I don't know. No, I ain't got a clue.
The 1975. So do you know how many people have
headline 1975 aren't popular enough to headline, surely.
I don't know anything about them. Couldn't name you one of their songs. But all I know is they're a
Chocolate is one of their songs, isn't it?
All I know is they're a moderately popular light rock English band, right? Is that right?
Yeah, they're an indie band, I think, yeah.
So immediately, the Reading Festival website is just getting inundated with people demanding a refund because they bought a ticket to see Rage Against the Machine only, and now they're not playing.
Yeah,
and they're literally
Dave, Arctic Monkeys, and 1975.
I mean, who the fuck is Dave?
I don't know.
I thought that was a TV channel.
Who is Dave? I'm well out of music. I ain't got a fucking clue.
Well, I would say, David, watch this documentary and then be fascinated and horrified and glad that you never got into those kind of pits. It's definitely a recommendation. It's just like, it's an abject lesson in how to not put on a festival, I would say. And about how corporate greed is horrific. I would say the Woodstock brand, as we know it, is dead now. It's just dead.
How are 1975 headliners?
That's what everyone's saying, man. Well, because with the pandemic over the last couple of years, right, all the major rock bands and like really top bands that could headline it, they've just come over and done their own shows. There was in a space of about 2 to 3 weeks in London in June and July, you had Pearl Jam, the Pixies, Guns N' Roses, Weezer, Green Day. Now they would all be, arguably headliners for a Reading type style festival, wouldn't they? That would go down well with that kind of audience. But they've all done their own shows, so why wouldn't you do your own show and, obviously make more money from it and headline another one where people aren't necessarily there to see you? So, Trainwrecked, Woodstock 99. Definitely worth a watch. High recommendation here.
Is it called Trainwreck?
It's called Trainwrecked.
On IMDb's got it down as Clusterfuck.
Has it? That's an even better name.
Clusterfuck Woodstock 99.
That could be another documentary, mate. There's so many about it springing out now. As I said, when we were talking about it originally, I thought I'd already seen this one. So that rounds us off with our documentary section of the podcast. And here is your spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert! There's spoilers everywhere!
And the reason we have a spoiler alert is because Nope is finally out in the UK after a pointless month-long delay. And we really have to talk spoilers here, as there's really no way around it.
Let's go! Let's go, baby! I'm ready.
That's us slapping our hands like they did in the film. I mean, with the secretness of the films, and you know, indeed, mate, how many of us were just really fucking annoyed when it was confirmed that it was aliens in the second trailer that showed too much of it? I was like, I want to go in, I don't want to know anything about it. I want to go in and I want to be peeled. I don't want to know anything about it. I want my brain peeled.
Trailers properly faked you out with a lot of it. The big sort of twist, is it a twist? Should we just get straight into the what the alien is?
Just go it. What's the alien?
So the alien is the actual UFO. Is a living entity. It's not a ship. It is its own being
that eats people.
That eats people, exactly. And so that's a bit of a fake out, because in the trailer for Nope, you know, you've got that scene where the hand, you think it's an alien hand that's going in to touch, that's going through the tablecloth in it, and you've also got the scene where the scariest the moment in the entire film was when the kids were fucking about. In their costume,
was brilliant, wasn't it?
That was
really good.
That's the scariest bit in the film, because it's not. Can it even be? Yeah, it can't really even be classed as a horror film in a lot of ways.
It's a thriller.
It's more of a mystery, science fiction. I guess you would say it's a horror because it has horror elements, but more sci-fi than.
Let's quickly get into the plot, because there's not really much of a plot, to be fair, and. After a bizarre opening with about a killer chimp that I still don't really understand, which we'll get to later, the film is essentially about Daniel Kaluuya and Keke Palmer's siblings OJ and M. Hayward, who run Hollywood's only black-owned horse-wrangling ranch for movies. After the death of their father, the legendary Keith David, it's apparent that neither of the Hayward siblings are cut out for this job. OJ gets an offer to sell his ranch from neighbouring ranch park owner, Jupe Park, played by Glenn from The Walking Dead, Stephen Yeun, who has his own tragic backstory involving a killer chimp named Gordy. You get the usual kind of power failures and lights flickering on and off and glimpses of something in the sky. So OJ and M decide they're going to set up cameras to get whatever it is on film. In M's mind, it's for fame and fortune and Oprah money. In OJ's mind, it's to preserve his father's family business and legacy. They're supported by video shop and tech guy Angel Torres, played by Brandon Ferrara, and they attempt to capture this phenomenon they see in the sky. Jupe has the same idea as well, and well, it doesn't go as well for his audience, let's say. OJ and M, they then recruit legendary director / cinematographer, the wonderfully named Antlers Hoist, played by the most gravelly voiced actor known to man, Michael Wincott, the man with one of the best voices in Hollywood, man.
It's up there with freaking
Morgan Freeman.
Oh my god, I can't think of his name. Who does the voice of Darth Vader?
James Earl Jones.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the first time I heard Wincott, do you remember? He was the villain in The Crow. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
His character was called Top Dollar, and he literally stabs a guy in the throat, and then, because the guy's gurgling to death and taking too long to die, he gets even more annoyed, grabs a gun, shoots him, and then says, "For fuck's sake, die already." Every movie should have a Wincott voiceover. He should be in more of films. And David, one of the highlights of the film for me is this. It was a one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater. It was a one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater. A one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater. Yes, that was my Michael Wincott impression. I am available for Michael Wincott impersonations.
That wasn't you doing an impression.
I did practice that. And so the film essentially is M and OJ trying to capture a UFO on camera. That's it, right? That is the film. There's not really much more to it than that.
Essentially. Yeah.
So, David, for you, was this film dope or a nope?
No, it was a dope. It was dope. It was a good film. I enjoyed it. If you was to ask, like, out of the Jordan Peele rankings of films, because he's still not done a bad film. However, this would be probably my least favourite of the Get Out, Us, and Nope.
Okay, so let's quickly do your Peele rankings. So what?
Okay,
so
that was it.
Okay.
Get Out, Us, and Nope.
In order of release. I am going to be minorly controversial and say I would go Us, Get Out, and Nope in that order. I really preferred Us. It just had some crazy ideas. It was Us, for me, was genuinely creepy and terrifying, and I didn't have a clue where the story was going. I will say there are very strong performances from Keke Palmer as the manic M, and you got quite an internal stoic performance from Daniel Kaluuya. And I think their very different personalities do clash well with each other. I've seen lots of comparisons with Spielberg in other reviews. Some people are saying this is like Jordan Peele's Close Encounters, and I can kind of see the comparisons, the critical comparisons, because it has that slow build-up, but I don't really think it is in the same class as Close Encounters. There was an Empire magazine reviewer called Campbell, and he said it was like the Jaws of the Sky, in that what Peele does is make the sky as terrifying as the sea in Jaws. And I do like that analogy.
That's a good one.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a very good one. That's why I give credit to the writer and not say it was ours. Peele indeed does try to make the sky look frightening. I remember when we did the original trailer breakdown, and you went, "He's making me afraid of the sky, Neil."
He's making me afraid of clouds. It was clouds
That's
he was
it,
making
clouds.
me afraid of.
Yeah.
I don't want to be afraid of clouds, though, everywhere.
And what I will say is he does make the sky look threatening. Every frame just drips with menace, and it's just lensed beautifully by cinematographer Hoyt van Hoytema. And he's actually worked with Christopher. He's actually Christopher Nolan's usual cinematographer. He's done Tenet, Dunkirk, and he's doing he's done now the upcoming Oppenheimer. And David, I also have to thank you for not spoiling anything for the film, because we bumped into each other as you were leaving a screening and I was walking into the screening last night. And as I mentioned on Twitter, you would do well under torture.
Thank you. It was hard, man. There was a lot of stuff, like literally outside the route, like outside of the cinema was these bunting that was up everywhere, and I was just like, oh my god, that's in the film, I need to talk to you about it. Like, and there's like loads of like, I just wanted to, when you just come out of the cinema and you want to just talk about it immediately, and knowing you were going into it, it was difficult, man. It was real hard.
Oh, it's funny because you were sitting there with Natasha, and you wanted to talk to me about it, and you just couldn't. And it's like, and it's just, so I think we talked about Sandman for about 10 minutes anyway. I was looking around, I was like, I'm pretty sure your missus may want to go home now.
Yeah, I don't think she enjoyed it that much, to be honest. I think she was kind of more confused with a lot of the plot points and a lot of the elements in it, which I can understand.
Well, David, I tend to agree. I think this is the weakest of Peele's films. And that's not to say it's not a good film or a great film, but I think one of the issues is the delays to us getting it over here in the UK from the States. We've had a month of just hype and hype and hype. I don't know if I out-hyped myself for it, but it just kind of left me cold and unmoved. Yes, you can dive into the subtext of the film about it's a film about being seen, and if you don't look at the UFO, it won't get you. When that rule was established, why did they not just walk around with their eyes closed? Like OJ does exactly the right thing when like the ship comes over him in his truck, and he just waits out like a smart, rational person. And at the end of the film, everyone's just looking at it. I was like, for me, the internal logic varied between the scenes. I was like, if you set up a rule for the film, but then you don't stick to it, you've kind of lost me a little bit there.
That was, that's kind of the whole part of the idea of the spectacle aspect of it, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, and I get that, but
it was like, because you can't. I understand, like, to survive something, just don't get yourself involved in it, but you can't help yourself. It's a natural instinct to look and to see, and that was all a part of it.
I feel like with Us and Get Out, you've got two brilliantly entertaining films that are obviously also every frame is dripping with subtext and intertextuality, but there isn't a lot of meat on the actual main layer of the film for me. It simply is they're trying to get a UFO on camera. That's it. There's not much else.
Yeah, I can understand that. So
I was disappointed for that.
Yeah, so like you said, Peele, with its layers and its intertextuality, he basically in all of his films so far, he holds up a mirror, doesn't he, on society, and he's basically reflecting tropes and aspects of society back at you through meanings and metaphors and symbolism and stuff within his movies. So the big one for this was do you remember the main quote at the beginning of the film? From the Bible, I think. Hang on, okay, I've got it. I will cast abominable filth upon you, make you vile, and make you a spectacle. So that's basically what the film is. So it's reflecting, for me, what it was sort of trying to do was reflect back onto people that are chasing chasing the spectacle, chasing that, the sister was chasing fame and fortune in Hollywood, wasn't she? The spaceship, the UFO, the alien, was essentially like could be seen and devised as a representation of the Hollywood as it, literally sucks people in and spits them out again.
Oh yeah, that's a very good analogy and point. But I don't think that holds true with OJ, because OJ, he's not looking for fame and fortune. He literally just wants to continue his dad's business. So why is he, kind of subjected to it all? I think in this type of film, why it doesn't work for me is, we can link this back to the previous episode when we was discussing the Sandman, and we had the episode 24/7, and in that episode, people stop lying to each other, and you get to see what people are really like inside. In Nope, I think if you're going to have an aspect of the film where, like you've said, the whole point of the ship is going to be a lens, there's lots of shots with lenses and reflections, and like you say, the whole thing to do with the gays in the film. Does it work if the characters aren't that interesting? Like, the characters in those type of films, usually it's used to reflect, it's done to reflect the badness in humanity, the evilness in humanity. And these characters aren't really that evil, none of them. I
think that's the point. That's the point, though. It's just normal. They're normal people. That's the point. It's reflecting onto us, me and you, right now, doing this podcast. Why are we doing it?
Super yachts.
He was chasing fame and fortune. He was chasing. So for the sister, it's fame that she wanted. For him, it's the fortune, because his business is dying. He needs to keep his business afloat. So with this, the spectacle and the alien that he's chasing is fortune. I don't think it's hard to relate to the characters, but I think that was kind of the point, is that the characters aren't necessarily evil. There's no inherent traits in them. That everybody, it's reflecting back on me and you. It's reflecting back on everyone. It's reflecting back on all of society. It's reflecting back on the social media age that we live in at the moment, Like the tragedy of this young boy that was just taken off life support in the UK after having to be put into a coma and becoming brain dead or brain stem cell dead or whatever it was. Because he was doing a TikTok challenge and he died because of it. That's happening all across the world. These stupid TikTok challenges. What are they doing those TikTok challenges for? They're chasing fame and fortune. And what the film and what the UFO represented was for Emerald or the sister. It was the fame side of it. Thank you. It was the fame side of it. And for OJ, it was the fortune side of it, because he needed that fortune to keep his father's business afloat, to keep his business afloat, to keep that heritage, that pride in cinematic heritage and black heritage that the family held alive.
But why is that a bad thing?
And I'd argue that Stephen Young was the villainous sort of character in it.
A bit.
Because he wasn't a perfect calendar. He essentially, what he was doing was exploiting people and exploiting a tragedy for his own financial benefit.
Oh yeah. Definitely. But I think in a type of film where it's using a device of the lens, like this does so much, it just, and I get what you're saying. I agree with your point that he is doing it all to us. But I mean, the fact that you could just read that much into the film, which is great, because it's got to you that on that level. Whereas for me, I was just like, it's just a film about some people trying to capture a UFO on camera that they shouldn't look at, and then it'd be okay.
I think because it's a Jordan Peele film, that it's holding up that mirror. That I agree with you that mirror isn't necessarily obvious with this. Whereas it's more obvious with Get Out and it's more obvious with Us.
Do you know what this feels like to me? Jordan Peele was involved with the Twilight Zone TV series. This feels like would have been great as an hour episode of that. But I don't know that the idea itself has got enough legs for the film.
What I found, if we're talking about disappointing aspects of the film, I'd have been... it's amazing that, the jaws of the sky and all that sort of stuff, he's made the sky scary and he made the sky imposing. But there wasn't really anything actually frightening about it. No. There was nothing that, I'm not going to go outside now and be like, oh, fucking hell, what's in that cloud? There was nothing genuinely...
You was like that for about 6 months before the film came out when you saw the trailer.
Yeah, but there's nothing... Yeah, but there was nothing genuinely, horrifying about it. There was, so the actual scariest from a typical horror film type of element was when the kids were just fucking about with him. you know, and you're waiting there for that alien to, or that child, whatever it was, to just, you know, slowly creep its head down and around. And then when that one stood up slowly, and he's just like, nope, I'm out, and then fucking decks one in the face.
I think what Peele does really well is the small moments like that. Like you say, the kids walking around, you're like, oh shit, it's actual aliens, man. And the way they're creeping, and it's like they're at the edge of the frame and they're slowly creeping forward. Oh, and there's one closer to the frame, and that was done really well. And like when the praying mantis lands on the camera, and you're just like, oh. And there is one jump scare in it, man. It's when the practice horse thing falls out of the sky and crashes into his car. And that was kind of cool, actually.
I'd say is a bit of a jump scare as well, but
that was
you want. I don't think this film doesn't need it though. That's not. I don't think Jordan Peele.
Peele's not.
He doesn't need jump scares, does he? He's more psychological. He's smarter than needing to use jump scares in his horror film.
So here's something I want to talk about. Why at the end? Well, because we know the UFO's an organism and not just a UFO with other stuff inside. And actually, now you know that, you kind of think back to when you saw the people getting sucked up. You see them almost travelling up its throat, don't you? Like that, the way they're kind of being digested.
Yeah, I think they were stuck because that horse was blocking its food pipe, I think, or something.
Well, and also don't forget, there's a bit where it's over the house and it literally just starts raining blood. That was just oh, that was the image of the film for me.
That was brilliant. Yeah.
That was an absolutely amazing.
Like when it's trickings down the window and there's just blood seeping through. Yeah.
And they kind of figure out, don't they? That's how they defeat it in the end. Is they figure out it can't digest certain things, so they send up the old big balloon and it basically chokes on it and explodes. which is an interesting way to go. It's funny, whenever I see those kind of cartoon people with a thumbs up, it always makes me think of the Fallout video games.
Yeah, fair enough. Like the Nuka-Cola boy, or no
yeah, exactly. It looks like that. It looks like...
well,
there's in one of the recent Fallout games, there's a level, isn't there, where you're literally going through like a Wild West style theme park, and I was just like, this just makes me think of Fallout. Which then I was thinking, and I would actually rather be watching a Fallout movie.
No, man, wow, you really disliked it then. I didn't really
dislike
enjoyed the film.
I didn't dislike it. It didn't grab me. And but Jordan Peele is one of those filmmakers who, I think if you don't get it when you watch it the first time, and it didn't, I didn't get it the first time I watched it.
Yeah, I think with the whole mirror scene and that, I think it became more obvious, as in the societal reflection, when the TMZ reporter turns up, because you know he's just a bit of a prick. He's there. He's trying to do exactly what they're doing, which is capture something on camera, which he can then exploit for money. And then he says, "Oh fuck you," drives off. There's that quite comedic moment where he flies off the thing, and then even when he's there dying, about to get sucked up, he's still saying, film everything, fucking get the shot, you know. It's like, okay, so it's that sort of feeding of all, you know, and even with the cinematographer, you know, he's living his life trying to find that one perfect shot, that one thing that's going to make him the most famous of all, you know, the best cinematographer that's ever existed. So he literally kills himself to grab this perfect shot of the ship / entity, UFO, whatever you want to call it. What was it called? What did they call it? I've forgotten now. Jean jacket. That there were some elements of it that I thought were a bit silly, like him doing that to get that perfect shot. You know, killing himself, sort of sacrificing himself for no reason, because he'd already had a pretty fucking decent shot before that moment. And I do still have some unanswered questions that maybe you'll be able to help me with. Like, for instance, when the chimp, what was his name? Gordon, was it?
Gordo,
when you know, goes crazy in the past and beats everybody, and then you've got that slipper that's just standing upright. That was pretty unexplained. I don't know if I read somewhere that it might be an example of a bad miracle that they were talking about. You know, because it's essentially this miraculous thing that's happening. You can't explain it, but it's negative because it's happening in it's happening in an environment which is gruesome and brute. But so that whole segment was a bit slightly confusing for me. I wondered whether Natasha actually thought that whole set and everything, he built Jupiter's Claim on top of where that set was and where everything took place. I don't know where she got to that conclusion, but that's what she thought, because he was exploiting the that horrific.
Well, that would have taken it more down
tragedy.
the horror film route, wouldn't it?
Yeah, he was exploiting Dupe, sorry, was exploiting that horrific tragedy for financial gain by saying, I normally pay people to come in, charge people to see all this, but here you go, you can come in and have a look at it for free. And it's basically a museum of
a shrine of the slaughter.
Yeah, of what happened to him. And there are some unanswered questions though, like that slipper.
I mean, yeah, what was with all the chimp stuff, man? Like, when it started with that, I literally think they put that scene first just so they could have the shot of the chimp before it said Monkey Paw Productions, and I think that's about as deep as it went.
No, I think there is something into it. I just don't think that I'm smart enough to work it out. But what is it then?
Yeah, but that's the thing, right?
Yeah, I don't think I'm smart enough to work it out. Maybe it's because it's animal exploitation within, the horses in cinema, animals in cinema, animal exploitation within cinema, potentially.
I think if you're having to work that hard to figure out the meaning of the film, then the filmmaker hasn't done his job.
Well, sometimes that's the beauty of cinema, though, isn't it? Like having to think and really dig deep into the...
Yeah, in a truly classic great film, right, you can enjoy it on the surface level and come out
and you can enjoy it, and you can
dig into it and rip apart. This, I thought, was more... This had less on the surface than it did going on underneath. And I didn't want to sit there, and I think that hampered my enjoyment of it because I'm just like, I was trying to work it out as I was watching it. I was like, can I just enjoy it? I just want to, like, visually it's stunning.
No, I can understand that. Yeah, like Get Out, for instance, had both, and it had that balance very well.
But what I will say, David, so to end on a positive rather than negative, I will say that just because the film didn't grab me as much as I expected, a new Jordan Peele film is still something to be celebrated. Because in a cinema landscape dominated by sequels, reboots, and the MCU, Peele is an original filmmaker who makes genuinely entertaining films, and we must protect that at all costs.
The man's a genius, and he's doing so much for black cinema. The man's amazing. I couldn't speak. Honestly, I love him. I can't wait for his next film already.
Yeah.
I do have another sort of questions though, more on the
right. Throw me your questions. Yeah.
The new show that he set up, and he's clearly been feeding horses to the UFO to what was it, Jean Jacket for a few months at this point. How would no one notice that? How had this show that he'd set up, and if he's been doing it with the show, how would there are only like 5 people there watching? You'd feel like that word of mouth would have spread at this point.
Well, also we didn't get to see what would happen in the show normally, did we?
No, yeah, so he says like, oh well, normally at this point the
he says, they're early. Now, if we'd seen it before, we might have understood. I think they should have actually done the old rule of threes thing. Showed it once briefly, showed it a second time, and then the third time is when it goes wrong. But then again, Peele's very good at going against the conventions of cinema. How many times do you see something not work in a film, then the third time the thing happens? Yeah, and exactly. on this time, he's showing you for the first time, and it doesn't go to plan the first time it's supposed to happen. But because of that, I was just like, well, what was supposed to happen the first time? That's like literally like what you were just asking. Well, what was going to happen? Was the horse going to get sucked up into the UFO? I suppose
that's what I thought. I thought they were feeding it, right? It was like that was a spectacle. Yeah. They were feeding this UFO, but I felt like if that was the show and it had been going on, even though he said it was the first time this show had happened, I feel like he's been feeding this horse for a while. Then why had no one known about this? Why was there were only like 5 people watching?
Yeah, word would have got out, man. I mean, you can't. That was one of the things, right? Although it's set in a remote location, it's still in the modern day, and there's cameras, and there's internet, and there's TMZ. So you can't set it in this.
Another thing which I'm a bit confused about was, do you know the woman that was there? That she was obviously been mutated. She was the woman. She was the actress, wasn't she?
She was a girl. She was a young girl, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was. Yeah, she was the actress within the show, and she was the one that was beaten up by the monkey.
I had her face eaten off.
I feel like, again, perhaps I'm not smart enough to understand it, but I feel like she was there mainly just to add it into the trailer. So it's like a really creepy, kind of scary image of a person in a trailer. Because her being in the trailer was quite creepy, wasn't it? With her face being eaten off. But she didn't really add anything to more than that to the film and to the story. Unless, like, again, I'm not seeing deeper into the message.
Again, it could be a personal thing, because like I say, I'm seeing 5-star reviews across the board and people calling it a masterpiece, but it just didn't grab me. The more I think, the more I've written about it and thought about it since I saw it last night, I'm just like, it's fine, but I don't. There's so much subtext and not enough text.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, so where would we go? What would we rank it?
Part of me wants to give it a 3 out of 5. And then part of me says, no, it's a 4 out of 5.
Give it out of 10.
Out of 10, okay, 10 makes it easy. I'll give it a 7.
I would also say 7, mainly because for me, Get Out was a 10, and I think Us was an 8. And if I say this isn't as good as Us, then actually no, I'm going to give it an 8. I'm going to say it's the same as Us.
Whereas I'd give Us a 9, and I'd say Get Out a 9 as well. And This is a 7. But like I said, we need filmmakers like Jordan Peele. We need filmmakers like Robert Eggers and Ari Aster. We want people who are taking risks and doing new and interesting things. And we just because that's where the next great blockbuster films are going to come from. Because Hollywood will always do the same. It will churn out the same repeats of the same stuff that's always worked until it doesn't work, and then they'll look at these brilliant filmmakers and go, okay, well, here you go. Here's all the money. Go and do what you want to do. And that's when you get truly original films like The Northman, like this. Like even though it sounds like we're not fans of Nope, it's still a breathtakingly
I'm a
original
fan.
film.
I'm a fan. You don't sound like a fan, but I quite enjoyed it. You're right though with those directors. They're bringing something new and different that we haven't seen in cinema for, like the 5 years prior to them, maybe coming before they.
You got people like Damien Chazelle.
Yeah.
You got Olivia Wilde coming through now. Do you know last night? Did you notice the trailers before the film? All the trailers were almost all Halloween and horror trailers.
Yeah, I went for a wee during the trailers. I didn't really see many of them.
There was Halloween Ends, which clearly it's not.
I saw
going
that
to.
one, yeah.
And I was like, I'm gonna go and see that just to mock it. I'm gonna hate watch that. Man.
Smile. I saw a trailer for Smile as well that I'd not seen that before, so that was interesting.
The Exorcism film looked quite interesting as well.
I didn't see that one. I was weeing.
Did you see the trailer for Don't Worry, Darling? Olivia Wilde's new film.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
That kind of almost had a Nope thing going for me because
that was Harry Styles and your girl Florence Pugh. Yeah,
the Pugh. Yeah, so it's got the two of them in it, but also Wilde herself's in it. I noticed Gemma Chan's in it as well. So I'm trying to think who else. I looked at the cast. I was like, it's got a hell of a cast, and it definitely looks like it's some kind of weird sci-fi film again, doesn't it?
With the horror directors, the horror trio at the moment of Aster, Eggers. I think Eggers is sort of branching out a little bit more. But who's your favourite out of the three?
What, Peele, Eggers, and Aster. Well, it's a bit unfair to include Aster because he's only made 2 so far.
That's true, but he is. I suppose
it's a hard one, man, because right for Peele, what he's done for representation and originality is faultless. But I think personally, I've enjoyed. Let's think, The Witch. I really enjoyed The Witch. But a lot of people, it's kind of a bit like Nope. Not a lot really happens in it. It's a very basic story, and not a lot happens. It's all in the subtext with The Witch. The Lighthouse, I didn't like it the first time, really struggled with it. And that might be what I'm like with Nope. It might take me another view or two to go.
I was saying this to Natasha. I want to watch it again because I want to see it. And I feel like I'll have a better, deeper appreciation.
It could be like
for
it could be a Lighthouse moment, I have to force myself to watch it again and really concentrate on it to get everything out of it, where all these other people who are giving it 5-star reviews at the minute are getting out of it. Exactly, Cheddar. I agree 100%. Yes.
Sorry, an ant farted, so he's barking at it.
Right, well, I think that about wraps us up for our, I was going to say slightly shorter podcast today, where we've literally only talked about 2 things, and well, let's face off, let's be honest, Woodstock was more or less me monologuing for about 20 minutes about my love of rock music and festivals. Nope, which some great points on Nope today, David. I think you made some very, very salient points on it, and I think I'm going to have to give it another chance. But yeah, on my initial viewing of Nope, it was more as opposed to Nope. And lastly, actually, that's a good point, David, where you mentioned about the ranking of your Peels and your Asters and all like the best working young horror directors and thriller directors these days. Right as we started recording the podcast about an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 days ago, I put a very quick poll up and I asked people on our Twitter to say, what is your favourite Jordan Peele film? And Get Out smashed it with 81.8% of the vote. And Us and Nope both were in joint second with 9.1% of the vote. I guess Get Out clearly is the winner for amongst fans of the Peele, and Us and Nope, in at least in our Twitter followers' comments, are equal. So I think we'd agree with that, wouldn't I? Well, you'd agree with that, wouldn't you? You'd agree Get Out.
Yeah, that's exactly the same as me, yeah.
Well, it's been a hot one. I'm going to go outside and dunk my head in, well, nothing, because we're not allowed to, because we're not allowed to have water, are we? So I'm going to dunk my head in the sink for a couple of minutes. Actually, no, I'm going to go...
No, we can have water. There's not a hosepipe ban for us, bro.
Not when we recorded this.
Oh, actually, there's not for me. I don't know about you.
Well, we don't live that far apart, man. I don't think it's different water authorities. And this has been the Weather Channel. I'm going to go off to sit in the fridge for the rest of the day and watch football and collapse. And David, you need to go milk that dog.
Why do you keep saying that? That's a bit weird.
It's very weird. Oh, and the last thing to say, David. It was a one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater. It was a one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater. See you next time, folks.
Why'd you have that on repeat? Like, why'd you... Okay, bye.
We needed roads.